to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who review, episode 21. Now, before I talk about basically I'm actually talking about two Doctor Who stories, don't worry, I will explain the reason why. There's something I forgot to mention when it comes to this particular story right here, and it's very important. This story is the first appearance of the sonic screwdriver. Yep. First appearance that I completely forgot about that. But I figured though, why not discuss that for a brief bit. Yeah, of course the Doctor uses on a screwdriver in the story to just open a hatch. And that's it. Oh yeah, he does use it also in one of the two stories I'll talk about here. Now, we're going to talk about two stories here. The Ark in Space and the Sontaran Experiment. Now, you're probably thinking, Nick, why are you talking about two stories? Even though normally you do one. Well, there's a reason for that. Because originally these two stories were one. Yes, as a matter of fact, this actually is two episodes, by the way. Yeah, this was originally part of this. It was part of like a cost-saving measure, I think it was. Now, this story right here, Ark in Space, starts a continuous story arc that kind of picked up not only after the events of Robot, which is the first appearance of the Tom Baker version Doctor. Excuse me. Also, these two stories are, in fact, the second and third stories of Tom Baker's second year, respectively. The other ones that follow up to a previous Doctor story. Let's start with first the Ark in Space. This is the second appearance of Harry Sullivan, who is traveling with the Doctor, and it is a place called Minerva. Basically, the Minerva space station, which basically later reappeared in a different story. Now you have the Doctor and crew just arriving at the place, and then they just basically just wander about. Sarah Warner's room gets locked in. Oh yeah, apparently the place has got no oxygen. Yeah, it turns out though there was a saboteur. When the heck this was? This actually was a plot point that was never actually explained of who the heck cut the cords and caused them to sleep basically past their overtime. The answer is never actually been explained. No, not really. They've been teasing themselves in the following story, but the one thing this episode never explains, who the heck cut the freaking cords? And who caused the alarm clock not to go off? That it was to go off in 5,000 years. They say it was like 10,000 years. Excuse me. Yeah, say the space station was built back in the early 30th century. Yes, 30th century. It took a bit to eventually restore the oxygen for this place, and they did. And they also noticed basically some weird green stuff. Yes. And, well, I should talk about this picture here on the cover. Like, that's the bug, apparently, that came on board. Yeah. It doesn't look that impressive on the cover of this DVD for good reason. It's a costume. Yes, it's a guy in a bug costume. Which, the bug itself, I don't remember what it was. Oh, and by the way, what does this guy come with? Bubble wrap. No joke. That's actually bubble wrap colored in green. Yes, the first time you see this thing is like this weird, like one where we actually almost see the guy's face because there's a little hole in it. Excuse me. Yes, and the Doctor and crew basically tried to revive the space station. They do, in fact, revive at least 3 of the technicians. Well, first they revive the medical person because Sarah acts upon some teleportation being get knocked unconscious. Just about an hour. And, of course, they slowly investigate, well, like, the creature. They say the reason why, they later reveal the reason why the creature's here, because apparently the humans eliminated its actual colony. And they want to come to the space station for revenge. That was the reason for it. I'm like, okay, fine. Let's see what else. Oh yes, and there's a lot of a little bit of technical stuff. This one, it feels like a bit of a horror show. This one, but very Lapo horror. That also Noah himself, basically, he's the leader of this expedition. He basically turns control to Venera, who is it's like I say his bond companion, pair it up because genetics. Basically, in a way, it's kind of, they don't say it here, but Vanera is actually Noah's fiance. Yep. And apparently, they don't like the way normal people talk. Like to refer to them as aggressives. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Well, you gotta blame the writing for this one, which is written by Robert Holmes, who does write a lot of good stories, Doctor Who. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that. That's probably like, oh, look, aggressives because they talk differently. And because they dress differently. Oh, because they wear those white suits, those white outfits you guys wear with the little wiggly line. Yeah, such boring space uniforms. Yeah, this definitely is a good story. It's only 4 parts. I mean, the original was 6. But it's a fun story. I like, aside from the whole anti-aggressive stuff, basically, I think it's like how we normally talk. Aside from that, this actually is a really good story. Now I give this one roughly a 10 out of 10. It's a really good story. Next up is the Sontaran experiment. Now this one is unique because in the last one, they activate the transmitter to go back to the surface basically to check out the planet, see if it's basically habitable. And of course, we have a Sontaran here. Yes, a Sontaran. Yes, and Sarah Jane was in the last Sontaran story, which is one, the Time Warrior, which was the first appearance of her. It was also her first appearance as well. And the Sontaran looks way, way different. I mean, suit-wise, it's a bit more grayer than the original one. And here's a fun fact for you. The guy who plays the Sontaran, same actor who played Lynx. This is Strife. They kind of explained the reason why they look exactly alike. Well, it's explained. They're clones. Yes, clones. And this also is the first Sontaran story featuring more than one Sontaran. Yeah, more than one. And what is it doing here on Earth? Torturing 9 people 9 different ways. Like lack of water, burning, all that sort of stuff. And like, they're down to about 3 people left by the end of the story. Yep. By the way, yeah, this is like really quick. This is 2 parts. This is done like just by an hour. Yeah, it's like really quick to get through. It's a good paced story for a quick 2-parter. Yeah, also for a Sontaran story, this is by far the shortest one to date. Yes. Not only is this one of the shortest Doctor Who stories ever told, but it's the shortest Sontaran one. Because it's 2 episodes. Yep. Well, there's some bits. Well, in the case of they apparently wanted to invade the galaxy in order to up their battle with the Routons. Yes, the enemies are frequently mentioned in Doctor Who. But here's a fun fact about the Routons. Do you know how many times they actually appeared on Doctor Who on screen, in canon? Once. Yes, once. In the Horror of Fang Rock. That might be something about talking about something. That's a weird. That's kind of like a horror story. That one. This is also, here's something a little factor about this one. It's the first Doctor Who story to take place entirely outside. Yeah, there's no indoor scenes. This one. Well, kind of with Strife. With Strife's basically his commander. Who he reports to. But aside from that, this is basically all outside. They say this is Earth for some reason. Yes. Is it a terrible story? No, not really. It's actually a pretty good story. But my best recommendation is when you watch this one, be sure to watch this one first to get a good grasp on the stuff basically happening here. Because this story kind of helps set up this one. Because this one here picks up exactly where we left off this one. Yep. And I get this one also a 10 out of 10. Now, of course, anybody knows who's watched Doctor Who. If I can, where are those DVDs here? Where are they? I just had them. Here they are. Anybody thinking, what happened next? This, Genesis Daleks, Revenge of the Cybermen. Yep. Yeah, and this pretty much is most of Tom Baker's first year on the series. Yes. There's actually one story I have not covered yet from this era, for this first year, and that is Robot. But yeah, this is stories 76 to 79. That's 4 straight Tom Baker stories. Now, aside from these 4 stories, is there any other Tom Baker stories I've covered now? There's only about a couple more I've covered. Yes, overall. I've only covered, believe it or not, 6. Yes. 6 Tom Baker stories. Yes, it's the 21st episode. I gotta bring this up now. Yeah, so I've covered officially 6 Tom Baker stories. And those are, let's put these in the right order, shall we? And these overall are The Ark in Space, The Sontaran Experiment, Genesis of Daleks, Revenge of the Cybermen, Destiny of Daleks, and Legopolis. Yep, that is roughly 6. Yes, 6 Tom Baker stories. 1 Peter Davison story, 1 Sylvester McCoy story, and the only Doctors I've never covered any of their stories for so far have been the 1st and 6th. First, I've never developed a really big interest in the first Doctor stories. Yeah, not really. Yes. And as for, the one Doctor covered the least amount of stories, aside from the 5th and 7th Doctor, is, well, the 3rd Doctor. I have covered officially from him 3 stories right now. I have covered, overall, The Spirit from Space, The Time Warrior, and Death to Daleks. Yep, only 3. And you're like, really? Only 3? That's not much. Yes. If you want to think of the one Doctor, I've covered a lot of his era so far. And that is Patrick Troughton. Yes. Well, that actually is not Patrick. That's very tough. My mistake. Yes, Patrick Troughton. I've covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Troughton stories. 8. Starting with his first story, Power of the Daleks, Moonbase, The Faceless Ones, Tomb of the Cybermen. Love the story. The Ice Warriors, Web of Fear, which actually was led to Creation Unit, this one. The Invasion, the sequel to this one. And The Seed of Death. And that is all of Troughton's stories. Yeah, it's interesting. I've covered only 8 of his... Actually, no. 9 of his stories, yes. Fear of the Deep basically marks 9 Troughton stories that I've covered so far. Yeah. Anybody thinking, really? Only that much? That's interesting. So yes, here is all 9 Troughton stories. All 9 of them. Yes, that's all I covered right now anyways. And of course the 1 5th Doctor story, Peter Davison, Cast of Elva, and the 1, and this was also my first one I did so far, Remembrance of the Daleks. Yes. So far, out of all these stories, the only one I've not been that I didn't think was that good. I mean, all these stories are good. The only one, in my opinion, was not that good of a story is Death to Daleks, and I love Daleks. That's the only reason why I got this one, was basically because of Daleks. Yep. No, this is not the end of the series just because I reached 21 episodes. This one. Yeah, just because I reached 21 does not mean I'm ending it here. Oh no, I'm not ending it here. Don't worry about that. I just wanted to show off basically what I've viewed so far, which is a lot. Yes. Now, here's the thing. Actually, scratch that. There's actually one 3rd Doctor story I've covered, aside from Spirit from Space, Time Warrior, and Death and Telex. I've also covered Doctor Who and the Silurians, which was the second story of John Pertwee. The one thing I love about this era of Doctor Who is that it feels like you're watching like a multi-part movie. That's the best way to describe it. Yeah. And overall, this stuff is really good, and I can't wait to have more Doctor Who stories to discuss. Yep. And you're probably thinking, why the heck did you show off all your Doctor Who DVDs in your 21st episode? Wouldn't you say this like 25? Well, why not? Yes, why not? Because that's all, as of right now, that is all my Doctor Who stories that I have. Now, you're probably going to be asking, okay, Nick, what about any stories planned to do from the first or the sixth Doctor? And are you planning on covering any stories from the current Who? I have covered a little bit of the current Doctor Who. Yes, I have. Actually, wait, there's actually one of fifth Doctor story. I just completely forgot. I remember now that I covered. Yeah, it was Earthshock. So I covered officially 2 of them. Yep. I've covered mostly the only stories I've covered from New Who is just some of the Cybermen stories. Not all of them per se, just some of the ones. Basically, all the ones under Matt Smith and the first 2 under Peter Capaldi. Yes. I will cover more stories later on. I do have more Doctor Who coming. Don't worry about that. Yeah, because I have the complete series under Peter Capaldi. I figured getting it would be a good idea because I actually watched all this stuff when it aired. The other one that didn't was the second to last Christmas special that was published on him. That was the Return of Doctor Mysterio. That was the one I have not watched yet. I probably will watch in the future. But in the case of classic Doctor Who, I'm going to continue reviewing because I love classic Doctor Who. Okay? Now, in case you're probably wondering, okay, what about fairy tales? That's coming? Yes. That will come today. Okay? Next video. Bye.